We are now nearly 70% of the way finished with the 2021 regular season, and the Dynasty and Fantasy Football playoffs are quickly approaching in the next couple of weeks. So it is time to dive into your Dynasty waiver wires and see if there are any players that are available that could be of use to you to actually make a playoff push, or perhaps to sell off before your eventual trade deadlines or before the end of the year to gain some more roster value. So let's get right into the video. First and foremost, as I say every single week, I pull real data from actual Dynasty leagues run through safe leagues on myfantasyleague.com to help guide me into the direction of players that could actually be available in your Dynasty league. So any rostership data or percentages that I reference in this video are from that data set. Real quick, I would like to highlight just a couple players that are probably already rostered in your Dynasty leagues, but just in case, double check your waiver wire to see if these guys are available, because if they are, you need to add them immediately. And that includes Devontae Freeman, running back for the Baltimore Ravens, Samaje Perine, running back for the Cincinnati Bengals, Boston Scott, running back for the Philadelphia Eagles, Randall Cobb, wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers, and Kendrick Bourne, wide receiver for the New England Patriots. So let's kick things off with the first player, or I guess players that might be available on your Dynasty waiver wires that could be worth an add after this week. And that is basically any player on the Tennessee Titans offense right now. And that includes Dontrell Hilliard, D'Onta Foreman. If either one of those two running backs are still available, you need to go out and pick those up, especially Dontrell Hilliard. Jeremy McNichols, I think, as well, could be in that mix when he comes back from injury after the bye week this week. But this Tennessee Titans wide receiver core is just so desperately depleted. It's just so terrible how bad this wide receiver core has gotten now with A.J. Brown on the injured reserve. Julio Jones basically hasn't played all year. It's really, really bad. And of course, Marcus Johnson, the one bright light that shone for 1 week with 5 catches for 100 yards, also on the injured reserve before this week. So it really comes down to Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, who was the leader for the Tennessee Titans this past week, given only 2 receptions, 24 yards, and did score one of the touchdowns for the Titans. But he's basically the leader, so if he's available, absolutely go pick him up. But I feel like you could also basically make an argument for any other Tennessee Titans wide receivers, be it Dez Fitzpatrick, Chester Rogers, whoever this Cody Hollister person is. I feel like you could just add any one of those Tennessee Titans wide receivers and just see what happens over the next couple of weeks and see if any of them actually develop into being an actual wide receiver that is usable for fantasy football with Ryan Tannehill. The real honest truth to this might be that none of these guys are really worth picking up or even rostering, because you're not going to be able to trade them and you're probably not going to be able to start them. And if you are, you're not starting them confidently at all, given the Tennessee Titans and how bad their offense is. But I feel like somebody has to do something for fantasy, and we've been chasing Detroit Lions wide receivers for the majority of the year as well. We picked up Khalif Raymond. We got into now Josh Reynolds. I just feel like there is some potential for fantasy wide receiver goodness, or at least some usability out of this Tennessee Titans offense. And that might not necessarily be the case, but I just feel like there has to be something there. So definitely make sure that you go out and pick up, if they are still available, Dontrell Hilliard 100% needs to be added. Jeremy McNichols as well, D'Onta Foreman. Those guys are already rostered, but just in case, just double check on them. But Nick Westbrook-Ikhine should be added. He could potentially be started if you're really in a pinch at the wide receiver position. But the other guys, Chester Rogers, Dez Fitzpatrick, dart throw wide receivers, just to see what actually happens, because you might get some usable weeks out of them, and I don't know, maybe something crazy happens and one of them actually becomes very fantasy relevant for you, like we were starting Brashad Perriman last year at the end of the year. Something crazy could happen again at the end of this year with this Tennessee Titans offense. The next player I would like to highlight is actually someone I already mentioned in this video, and that is Josh Reynolds, wide receiver for the Detroit Lions. And he really has the opportunity to become the wide receiver 1 on this Detroit Lions team to finish out the year. I mean, he's got the prototypical wide receiver size for it. He's got some athleticism. He's got previous rapport with Jared Goff, being former teammates on the LA Rams. So there is opportunity here, and we kind of saw that a little bit on Thanksgiving, to the tune of 3 catches for 70 yards and 1 touchdown. I definitely don't think that he could be a PPR kind of guy or somebody that gets fed a huge amount of targets. I feel like that is more TJ Hawkinson and Amon-Ra St. Brown, especially with DeAndre Swift potentially missing a couple of weeks here with his injury. But Josh Reynolds, I think, could be like the Marvin Jones kind of player in this Detroit Lions offense, who has the ability to catch and make big plays, score longer touchdowns, be the guy that gets the air yards and the yak on this team, and that is good and valuable for fantasy football. I would also like to note that in the 17 games with the LA Rams with Jared Goff, in which he saw 6 or more targets, Josh Reynolds did average 12 fantasy points per game in PPR formats. And that might not be wildly spectacular, that might not be super enticing, but that is something that could be valuable to you in a pinch start, especially if your wide receiver core is a little bit depleted now because of injuries. But that could be really, really valuable right off of the waiver wire if you just pick him up and might be able to actually just play him off the waiver wire. 12 fantasy points per game on 85+% average of snaps in those 17 games of the LA Rams. Those are all numbers that he could absolutely hit with the Detroit Lions on how horrible this team is and this wide receiver core is now with, again, an injury to DeAndre Swift. So that is definitely something that I want to keep my eye on. And if Josh Reynolds is available in over 30% of Dynasty leagues, you should go out and pick him up. The last player I want to highlight is James O'Shaughnessy, the tight end for the Jacksonville Jaguars, who actually had a very strong week 1 and then got hurt in week 2, then was placed on the injured reserve and hasn't played all the way up until now. But now he was the tight end 2 for the Jacksonville Jaguars behind Dan Arnold this past week. Dan Arnold unfortunately got hurt, so James O'Shaughnessy could be thrown right back in to that tight end 1 role that we liked and what we saw from him in week 1. And then what we also really liked from Dan Arnold that has made him a top 12 tight end in 4 of the last 6 weeks with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And like I said, O'Shaughnessy had a really good week 1. I mean, he had basically the same role that Dan Arnold has had. He had 8 targets, 6 receptions, 48 yards. That's pretty solid for a tight end in PPR performances without scoring a touchdown. And he's available in over 75% of Dynasty leagues out there right now. So you definitely can go up and pick him up off of waiver wires. There are definitely some other players to keep an eye on as we move through the final weeks of the 2021 regular season. The aforementioned Laquan Treadwell, wide receiver for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Zay Jones has also been kind of interesting to me for the Las Vegas Raiders. And then there are some deep stashes, some players that could be really, really interesting as deep stashes if you are in really deep rosters. These guys are barely owned in less than 10% of Dynasty leagues. So little Jordan Humphrey, wide receiver for the New Orleans Saints. The aforementioned Dez Fitzpatrick, again, still only rostered in less than 10% of Dynasty leagues, so definitely go check him out and see if he's available and stash him. And then Durham Smythe, the tight end for the Miami Dolphins. All these guys, I think, are very good roster stashes if you have the bench space. As I say every single week, I do write a waiver wire article for dynastyleaguefootball.com that does drop on Monday. So if you like access to that article that includes more players than what I included in this video a whole day earlier, you can sign up and become a DLF Premium subscriber. And right now we are offering the biggest sale of the year that we have ever done for Black Friday / Cyber Monday at dynastyleaguefootball.com. You can get 30% off of a DLF Premium subscription for an entire year. And you can continue to re-up at that price as well every single year on our Black Friday sale. So this is definitely the time to get in to gain access to the industry-leading ADP rankings, tools, the trade analyzer, the trade finder, as well as all of the amazing articles that the amazing DLF writing team is putting out every single day, every single week, including my waiver wire article on Monday. So 30% off Dynasty League Football Premium subscription is going on right now through December 3rd on Friday. So make sure you definitely go check that out. The links will be down in the description if you are interested in joining the DLF team. If you'd like to watch a video recapping the entire Week 12 slate of fantasy football games from a Dynasty perspective and lens, you can click right up here and watch that video. And with that all being said, guys, thank you all so much for watching. We'll catch y'all later.